Cool. So I'm going to record this. So if anyone wants to catch up with it, they can have the recording afterwards. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, they just had a pop-up because it's being recorded.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, cool. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Katie McManus. I'm a business strategist and leadership coach. I'm based out of Philadelphia, and I specialize in helping mission-driven entrepreneurs take their business from an idea phase to six figures, multiple six figures, or even seven figures. I typically work mainly with clients who are offering some kind of service. However, what I'm going to be talking about this evening applies to entrepreneurship across the board. So whatever your idea is, I hope this is useful to you. If you do have a question, I'm open to being interrupted at any time. So if you want to ask something that applies to your business, if you want me to clarify something, please do jump in. Deal? And occasionally I do accidentally swear. Are we okay with that?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I swear on LinkedIn. So I figure like, okay, well, you should know what you're getting into. Anyway, so there are three main problems that I see new business owners running into, and there's some really simple fixes to overcoming those. First and foremost, most new entrepreneurs don't know how to price their services or their products, and we're going to dive into what that looks like. Next is discovering what your niche is. There's a lot of mythology around this and a personal brand and all that stuff. And what I'm going to be talking about is a really simple way to start figuring out what your niche is. And finally, we all have a relationship with money. And I say that and you're like, well, I have relationships with people and my parents and my loved ones and, my significant other. But we also have a relationship with how we deal with money. And oftentimes that gets in the way, because we carry a lot of baggage from our childhood through to today. So, and just a little design also, my puppy may speak up from time to time, so just be forgiving of that, please. Anyway, first and foremost, I want to talk about pricing. The importance of setting your pricing is critical, because if you don't price correctly, you're not going to be able to make money in your business, and you're not going to be able to stay in business, which just makes this whole exercise an exercise in futility. We don't want that. So what I see happen most often with new entrepreneurs is that when they go to price their services in particular, they look at what they have previously made per hour in their JOBs. Okay. It's a different format. In your JOB, you are working a guaranteed 40 plus hours a week. You're making overtime. There are added benefits. When you're running your own business, however, you are doing a lot of work that you're not being paid for. And so you actually have to do the math so that your clients are making up the difference for all that stuff. The other problem that pops up when you don't price enough or charge enough for your services is you actually get like not great clients. How this shows up in the coaching world is obviously I work with clients all day, every day, but I can't do the work for them, right? So when they sign up to work with me, we have an interaction, maybe 2 hours a month, and then they have to go away and do the work. If they're not committed enough with their money, then those conversations just turn into like niceties that they have throughout their month, and they don't actually have any accountability into doing the work. So when that happens, you have a lot of clients that you kind of have chit chats with that don't actually do any of the work that they need to do, which means they don't see any results, which means that you as a business owner will not see any amazing testimonials come through, which is going to make it really, really hard to get more good clients in your business. The other crappy thing that can happen is that if you're charging too little and you're offering a service that, might be able to change, an area of someone's life. So say you're a personal trainer, you're going to change someone's relationship with their body. You're going to change their size, you're going to change their weight, their shape, whatever. If you charge too little, then there's going to be this snake oil connotation with what you offer. And people are actually going to look at what you offer, hear the price, and think, well, they must not be any good, or they must be a con artist or a scammer, because there's no way they're going to deliver that kind of result at so little money. Okay. So the solution here is that you have to price your service or your product like a business. And I'm going to use the example of the candle makers because we've all seen them on TikTok and Instagram Reels, right? They're pouring their candles. They're like making them fancy. If they were to just say, okay, my candles are all $12 and that's that, without doing the math of how much the wax costs, the jars, the wicks, how much it costs to ship them, how much it costs to make the labels, how much it costs to do all the packing gear, they're going to go broke really fast. And so you have to start off with how much money you want to make. And so does everyone have a piece of paper and a pen? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I want you to, okay, I'm going to ask you this question and I know you're going to come up with two answers. Okay. This is what always happens with my clients. I'm going to ask you how much money you want to make per year. And the first answer I always get is, oh, well, I'd be fine if I made like 50,000 a year. And that's your wimpy weenie answer. Okay. I don't want that answer. Okay. That's you being a weenie. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is your real answer. And that's the answer that I'm like, okay, I'm not interested in that. What's the real number you want to make? And it's that answer that I always hear people like their voice drops a little bit and they kind of whisper and they're like, oh, well, I'd really like to make $150,000 a year. And it's almost like it's too shameful to say. So whatever that number is, I want you to go ahead and write it down right now. Okay. Now divide that by 12. There are 12 months in a year, and you want to make that number in a year. Now, whatever service or product you sell, or you're thinking of selling, be it consulting services, coaching services, if you're going to be selling candles, I want you to think of how many you think you could feasibly do in a month, how many clients you could carry, how many candles you could produce and sell. And that, my friends, and of course, if you're doing a product, you also have to factor in how much money you're spending on supplies. But that, my friends, is how much you should be charging per hour per client. Okay. So anyway, so just a little activity. So when you do price like a business, you work less hours. That's just it. You work less hours. You don't have to push yourself so much to try to get those clients that are going to be non-committal and who probably won't even sign up with you in the first place because they don't believe that you can do what you say you do. You get better, harder working clients. And this is critical because if you're doing any kind of service that requires for them to go away and do work so that they see results, you need for them to be committed and do the work so that you can get those testimonials. Those testimonials are gold when it comes to running a small service-based business. And finally, you're going to be recognized as the best in your field because you're charging enough that people are going to think, okay, this person knows what they're doing. They have confidence in what they offer, and we need to invest in them. Okay. And so I want to share an example of one of a client that I had a few years ago. I like to call him 10-pack Jack. His name was not actually Jack. He was a leadership coach out of Palo Alto. He's actually a professor at Stanford. And he was selling leadership coaching in 10 packs for $1,000. So it was basically just $100 a session to work with him. And he was having a really hard time with his clients kind of dropping off after a few sessions because they felt like they could always just come back to it. And so he was making like I don't know, between 1,000 and 2,000 a month because that's how many clients he was bringing on. Now we started working together in January. The middle of February, he signed his very first client at his new package, which was $18,000 for 12 months. And that's 2 sessions a month. So he literally went from making $100 an hour and having clients that were just really loosey-goosey, not showing up, not doing the work, not seeing results, to making $750 an hour and having clients that were super committed to doing the work because they had invested in it. They had made a really conscious decision. In our 7 months of working together, I believe he brought in between 5 and 7 of those clients. So you can do the math. And that was only in the first 7 months. I know he's raised his rates since then. And I know he has broadened his circle of influence. And so he's bringing on clients pretty consistently month over month now. And that is totally possible in the coaching and consulting world, just so you know. Okay, so that is the problem of money and how to solve for it. Deal? Does that work? Any questions on that? I'm trying to see if anyone's shaking their head or nodding. Thanks, Owen. Okay, cool.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if you said it at the beginning, but what do you do?
So I'm a business strategist and coach. So I help my clients go from, I have an idea of a business to figuring out what their offering is, their niche, how they're marketing, what their marketing strategy is, how to sell that offering, how to work with their clients, how to offboard them, and so on and so forth. I'm like a business program in a box in a human.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yep.
Okay, fabulous. I also speak, if you can't tell. Okay. So next, another problem that new business owners have some stickiness around, I don't really necessarily want to call it a problem, is deciding on a niche. And let me tell you, a niche is so critical. The example I'd like to use is that, you know, if you were to open up a store and like hang a big sign in front and be super proud of it, but the sign just said the stuff store, and people ask you, what do you sell? And you're like, oh, I sell stuff. And they're like, well, who do you sell it to? And you're like, well, people. And sometimes not people. Like, I'm not picky. Anyone who, you know, could potentially use my stuff can come to my store. And then they're like, well, what's your price range? And you're like, well, it depends on what kind of stuff you're looking for. Who would want to go to that store beyond like a mild curiosity? Like, who would make it a part of their day? Like, if you're really seeking something, you're not just going to waste your time going to the stuff store. So when you refuse to pick a niche, or you're like, I want to help everyone and their mother, what you're basically doing is making yourself, sorry. Oh,
You're good.
What you're basically doing is making yourself impossible to do business with, and you're making yourself impossible to refer to. Okay. And so oftentimes this comes from and this is the first cost of this, is that it feeds into your belief around scarcity. Because essentially, if you're not wanting to leave any money on the table, if you're afraid that you're going to alienate a portion of the population who could potentially work with you, you're basically feeding into, okay, cool, well, there's not enough business for me. And so I'm just going to make sure I can serve absolutely everyone. And that's just going to be that. And it's not effective, because if I were to go out and say, hey, I'm a coach, do you know anyone who needs a coach? Like, who are you going to think of? And this is like the problem. This is my joke that I always talk about with life coaches, is like, hey, I'm a life coach. Do you know anyone who like sucks at life and needs a life coach? You know, that's really hard to refer to. So, you make it super, super easy for people to understand, hey, I need to work with you, or my friend Bob over here needs to work with you. Okay. And so the other part here is oftentimes when you're defining your niche, you use your expert speak. So do we have any engineers in the room? Yeah. Okay. Owen, I know that. Okay, cool. Off camera that I can't see. Okay, fabulous. So engineers, tell me. So when you talk about your day and describe the problems you're solving at work to your friends who aren't engineers, do they understand what you're saying?
Not usually.
Not usually. Yeah. Okay. So when we define and articulate our niche in our own expert speak, what we're doing is we're talking over our clients. We're talking over our target audience. And so not only are they not understanding that we're their go-to person who can help them with their problems, they actually get really turned off by us because we're talking over them and making them feel dumb. And so when you're articulating what your niche is, you have to use the same words that your target ideal client uses when they're a little bit drunk and they're describing their problems to their best friend. Okay. So as you're figuring this out, it's not that they don't love themselves enough to lose weight. It's that, oh my God, my pants are too tight and I don't feel sexy with my boyfriend. Okay. That's a diet coach. Okay. So you have to articulate it in their talk. And when you don't do any of this, you end up not being clear about who you are and who you work with and who you serve. So no one can be in business with you. It's only those super patient people who are at networking events and at parties who really stick with you and like, okay, so what do you do? And who do you help and all that stuff? And they like 5 minutes in, they've stuck with you and they're like, oh, well, my friend Dolores might be able to work with you. How do I connect you? But you can't count on people being that patient and that curious. Now, the solution to this is not sexy, and it is a bit of work, but it is so critical and it is so helpful. And honestly, a lot of my clients get a lot of clients themselves while going through this process. You have to do your market research. Okay, you have to talk to your ideal clients. You have to figure out, what are the things that they struggle with? What are they afraid of? What do they want more than anything? And why do they want it? Most importantly, okay. When you figure out how your clients speak, you can then explain what you do in a way that they will immediately get it. Okay, I help people feel more comfortable in their pants that used to be too tight. I help people feel super sexy when they're hanging out with their boyfriend. I help engineers connect better with their friends who don't understand what they do. Whatever it is, okay? The other thing that happens here is when you do the research and you have interviewed your ideal clients and you've taken extensive notes and maybe you've recorded it and had it transcribed, this makes marketing on social media so flipping easy. Literally, you take a fear or a desire that your ideal client has said in their own words and you just copy and paste it and put it in a Canva, and that is your Instagram post. And you might write a little caption about like this, what this means in the greater context and how you help them or the other problems that usually arise if they're frustrated with this one thing. Okay, so honestly, it is a no-brainer. You'll never have to be creative in your marketing again. You just keep going back to the research. And finally, when you do all of this and you're visible and you're talking to your clients on their level in their own language, at that point, by the time someone gets on the phone with you because they're interested in working with you, they are ready to buy. There's usually not a question. They're just like, I know you're the person, you really get me, you understand where I'm at, and I know you can take me to where I want to go. An example of this, do we have any copywriters in the room? And I can only see 4 of you. So there's copywriters in the wings. Let me know. So there's really general copywriters, they do writing and ghostwriting for social media, for blogs, for websites for companies. Now you can be super basic and you can, serve everyone and all that stuff. But I want to use the example of one of my former clients, Adam Kimmel. He's an engineer by trade, and he has trained himself as a copywriter. And so he does technical content writing for marketers who don't understand the engineer jargon that their engineers are telling them to translate what their product does. And I'm seeing Owen nods. So I imagine this is a pretty big problem. Now, because he specifies so narrowly, his name gets passed around everywhere. He was able, when we worked together, to take his business from 1,000 to 2,000 a month, again, to a consistent 8,000 to 9,000 a month. He's now rolling out a group program as well, which will bring in another, I think, 150,000 when it's up and running per year, where he's training other experts on how to use their expertise to translate it into a copywriting career. Because oftentimes copywriters, they have to do a ton of research to understand the topic that they're talking about. And if you're an expert in that space already and you know how to write and you know how to like frame things in a marketing spin, why not just become that? And you can be the go-to person and you can get up and running super fast. Any questions on niche? Nope. Okay, fabulous. Moving on. This is my favorite topic. This is the one that I really had to struggle with as I was building my business. And in the beginning, it did not go well. Okay, this is your relationship with money. Okay. Your relationship with money is usually created around the dinner table when you're a kid. So if your parents are talking about the Joneses that live up the street and, oh, he's doing so well at work and they just bought a boat and there's something so good about him, blah, blah, blah. Your brain is associating rich with good. And then the Smiths down the street, oh, he got fired again. There's something so sad about that family. They just can't figure it out. Poor is bad. And it can be flipped. Who has a family that like always talks poorly about people who have too much money? Like they're greedy, like they must be so selfish. They don't help anyone out, whatever. And our society also paints all these things on people with money. So Scrooge McDuck is my favorite example. I mean, he just spends all of his time doing like backflips and swimming through his piles of money. So you can have opinions about money, but money is just energy. Literally just energy, just like love, just like electricity. And it flows from person to person and you can be in it or not. Now, when you have a bad relationship to money, you usually don't believe that you can charge much for what you do. You believe that you have to discount. You believe that no one would ever invest in what you're offering. And because you believe all that and you carry it so firmly, you play super small. You don't ask for what you want and what you need in your business. And you never make money. And because you never make money, you prove your own story here that what you're doing is not worthy. No one's willing to pay. And because you're not charging enough money, people don't buy. And so your business flops and you have to go back to your JOB. Okay. Your solution here is are we using the term shadow work still? Like it's a little digging into, what are your beliefs around money and unpacking them. This is one of the things that I do with a lot of my clients, because you can't ask for big money if you believe that you don't deserve it, because people communicate a lot non-verbally. It's 80% of what we communicate is nonverbal, by the way. And a lot of that is an energy. And so who has ever tried to buy someone from a salesperson who obviously didn't believe in what they were selling? It's immediate. It gets translated. You have no confidence in what they're selling. And so you don't buy. So when you do the work on your money story and you heal that and you get clear on, I have shame around this, but I'm going to not have shame around it anymore. You end up being very clear about what your worth is. What your worth is when you are in business. And you're able to separate the worth of the thing that you do, the service that you provide, or the product that you're selling from yourself. It no longer means anything about you. So the rejection isn't as scary, because who likes selling something and hearing no all the time, right? Especially if it's your own service. It means like they're rejecting me. Oh my God. You don't have to feel that once you do this kind of work. You are able to confidently ask for bigger money. And I'm saying this, I want you to realize this is not just for business owners. This is also for people who are committed to having a career where they're working for companies. Everyone, I don't care who you are, what you're doing, when you're negotiating a salary, you should always be asking for more. The worst they can say is no. And oftentimes you'll end up being able to leverage something else if they don't actually have the money. And the beautiful thing about starting to ask for more money and being confident when you do, and being very firm in your worth and the worth of the thing or the service that you provide, is that you're actually going to start getting it. It's guaranteed, like it's basically guaranteed that you're going to start getting it, unless you're selling something that you haven't done any research on. And my own story around this is when I started my business, I had a really crappy relationship with money. I was this close to declaring bankruptcy. I signed up for my first business coach. He was like $20,000. I think I had less than $2,000 to my name, and I was over $50,000 in debt. And it took me hitting rock bottom and doing a lot of this money work before I was able to really reconcile that I had this whole belief around, what I was worth and what money meant and my attachment to certain stories around it. Once I was able to clear that, it took me a year to take my business to my first 6 figures. And then the next year I pretty much did 3.5 of that. So this work sounds a little woo-woo, I get it, but it is super critical and it actually does work. A couple of things that I want to offer you guys today. I don't know if there's a way to share links, Emily.
Like right now or send afterwards?
I mean, I can share it right now, and if people want to like click on it there, is that okay?
Yeah.
Does that work? Okay. Let me just see. Okay, so I'm gonna put it in the chat. So if you want, I put together a money map. So it's basically a PDF where you can go through and basically do all the math. It just walks you through how to do it to figure out what you should be charging. And it lays out a little bit more about that first topic I was talking about what you should be charging in your business. And finally,
Yeah, any links you send, I can just send out to everybody that's here afterwards if that works.
yeah, absolutely. And then this final one, my brave weenie link. So my motto is stop being a weenie and start your business already. Bravery, like I think anything can be accomplished if you just have 5 minutes of bravery. And so if anyone in this room wants to book a call with me, I'm gifting a 30-minute strategy call to anyone who is thinking about starting a business, needs to bounce some ideas off, or is ready to really figure out what their strategy is to move forward and start making some money from it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
What made you want to be an entrepreneur?
Is it bad that I say like I just don't feel like I'm an employable person? I honestly, I have ADD and I don't work well in an office. Like I'm not saying I'm a bad employee. I was in sales for a really long time and I always crushed my numbers. I was always leading my teams. And yet there was a flow to how the day went that just really maxed me out. I would burn out constantly. And so I realized, I didn't care that much about what I was doing. I needed to do something where I felt like I was actually feeding in and serving people in my world in the best way possible. And also I needed to work fewer hours. So now I've designed my life that I work probably between 25 to 35 hours a week, but I have like big breaks in between, you know? And a lot of what I do with my clients, because I had to do this for myself, is I have to help them figure out what their ideal life is. How are they going to be their most optimal human? Like, how are they going to be the person that most people want to hang out with and that they want to hang out with themselves? And whatever that looks like, there's a way to reverse engineer your business to support it. And so that's really what I did with myself. I do well when I have big breaks and I have time for creativity and I'm helping people and I'm able to do fun stuff like this and take my dog to the dog park whenever I want during the day. So yeah, I couldn't help it. I just needed to be an entrepreneur.
Going to like the relationship with money.
Yeah.
When you look back at it now, was there points in your life you can see where like you had a bad relationship before you hit rock bottom, but you like didn't recognize it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my roommate in my 20s, I'm 33 now. In my mid 20s, my roommate Emily and we used to joke that we were still paying off margaritas that we bought on spring break in college. Because we had this story around like, we can't ever admit that we can't afford stuff. Both of us came from what I call poverty proud families, which is, I think it comes from being like an Irish immigrant. You have to be proud with the little you have, because the human spirit doesn't do well when it thinks it's always downtrodden. So, we have 3 potatoes and an egg. We're going to make this work for dinner for a family of 7, and we're going to be super proud about it. We're going to figure out a way to do hand-me-downs all the time. And what happens is when you throw the children of that into a very product-driven society. I lived in San Francisco. And there's like a keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, is you have that mentality of I'm only allowed to make this much. So I'm not making a whole lot of money, but all my friends are making more money than me. And so I have to keep up with them. And there were a lot of different ways in which my relationship with money, flared its ugly head multiple times in my life. I had to hit rock bottom. Part of the reason I do this work with my clients is that I don't want them to have to get there. I'm curious, whoever asked that question, do you notice anything in your relationship with money?
Gosh, that's a good question. I would say that like I came from definitely like the poverty proud. So I would say I'm a little bit more cautious about where I spend my money
Mhm.
and like how I use it because I don't like want to get to that point and like be able to provide for my family in the future.
Yeah.
So I would say I have a definitely different outlook than maybe my parents did at my age.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. So it sounds like you have created something positive out of it. Something that I would be careful of, because I see this a lot, is you either have the keeping up with the Joneses style like I did, or you can turn into that archetype of blue collar Bill, where you've made up a story that every dollar is hard work. You have to suffer for each dollar. And you get really, really wound up when it comes to letting that money go. And so making investments in yourself, making investments in different things, like it becomes a very, very personal and anxious cycle. And you end up working harder for money that could come easier to you. So I don't know anything about your backstory, but that's just what I know from my work in this.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. What other questions do we have?
Please have one.
Yes, please.
I guess, what about those that are doing the work for themselves with their business, but they want to make the jump to having employees that they can then, have greater spread of their services, and, how do you help them make that transition?
Yeah. So, yeah, different level, different devil, right? So whenever you're scaling your business beyond just you and bringing in new employees, there are a few things that you need to start working on. You need to just start working on your leadership skills. It's one thing that we are not taught in school. Companies will only train it after they promote the individual contributor who is really good at doing the one thing. And usually it doesn't go well. And so working on your leadership skills so that you know how to best support each employee so that they can perform optimally for your business. Getting really clear on what you want people to do. Oftentimes I see new business owners, their first few employees, they hire and fire really fast. And I recommend that. So hire fast, fire fast. But the reason they end up firing those first few employees is because they're not being specific enough about the tasks and the quotas that those employees have to be hitting to be successful. The other thing that I want you to consider is that you should be having recurring revenue at a certain level so that you're able to pay yourself and not freak out about running out of money when it comes to paying these employees. And so sometimes I see a lot of new business owners thinking I have to hire someone full-time when actually you don't. In the very beginning, you can absolutely hire people who are contractors for your business. I have a few contractors myself, and have them work on a very specific area of your business. And you can always move them to full-time later if they're willing. What else? I think that's it. Is that a good starter for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was general around scaling. So yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah. Another thing that I want you to think about is you need to have contracts. I don't care if you've known these people forever and you trust them like family. Those are usually the relationships that go south fast and usually end up in a lawsuit. So you need a lawyer who's going to draft up contracts that protect your intellectual property, that collect you from having your customers stolen, and that really clearly outline what they're expected to do and what you're expected to do with them. So, and that goes for everyone. Any partnership you ever have contracts, even if it feels like a weird formality because you know the person, really trust the person, just do it. It's going to save the relationship in the long run. What other questions do we have?
What like training or education or work experience do you feel like gave you the skill set to do what you did?
Yeah. I was in sales for to do math, about 10 years. And I worked for a couple different startups. None of them actually made it, but I learned so much through that. And I was always working with marketing teams in my role in sales. I was always that person, like trying to really optimize how I could do my job in conjunction with the kinds of things that they were promoting. And I'm just that person. I read marketing books for fun. I'm also a trained coactive coach, and I'm certified through the International Coaches Federation. And I'm trained through the coactive leadership program. So that's a pretty intensive year-long leadership training that works more on how are you being a leader rather than the stuff that you're doing, which is more critical than anything that you can do in a managerial or business owning role.
Yeah.
Thank you. What else do we have?
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you
Owen.
been following sort of the general trend of, it seems like entrepreneurship is becoming a more popular calling just in sort of the wider world or nationwide as well?
Yeah.
What do you think about sort of that trend in general? And from what you know, if anything, what do you think of it? Is it good?
I'm a big fan of it. It's been amazing for my business. Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I have clients from California to Saudi Arabia, if that answers your question. I have a bunch of clients in the States and Canada and all over Europe and one in Saudi Arabia. I do see it as a huge trend. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. I really see workers and humans as realizing this past year and a half that they have some power over their own lives and not being willing to give that up anytime soon. And so some things that I'm predicting is that the marketplace for health insurance, the marketplace for doing retirement funds are going to become a lot more flexible to be able to work with this new workforce that is opting out of working for the corporate giants.
Thanks. Yeah, no, good answer.
Yeah, thank you. We have about 5 minutes left. Is there a final question that I can answer?
I've got one for you, Katie.
Yes.
Do you work with any entrepreneurs that run a non-for-profit or as a triple bottom line, like where they're focused on the triple bottom line, which is profit, community, or people and environment? Like, how would you talk to them about money when you're talking about a non-for-profit?
Yeah, so I see a couple different models here. So there's the pure non-for-profit. We are taking donations, we're doing fundraising, we're asking for sponsorship in a lot of different ways, and we're having a very specific impact on the world. Okay, and there's also kind of the hybrid model where you can have a for-profit business that has a nonprofit arm. And so you may technically tied a certain percentage of the money you make in your for-profit business to this nonprofit. And you can also do some fundraising efforts, and you can also have sponsors and people who make annual donations to that. Also, I have seen for-profit businesses just partner with a nonprofit that they really, really believe in, and do very specific things to support them in their fundraising. So I'm curious, what is the business that you have in mind, or the nonprofit?
So it'd be specifically market gardening. So basically small scale, local produce out to CSAs in your local community, to where you're not actually really trying to scale it, because the whole idea is that you're trying to grow organically and everything like that. So money obviously becomes a topic there of, well, I'm not trying to make $1 billion because I would really have to kind of scale it and buy machinery and yada, yada, yada. So that's kind of the idea and the vision.
Yeah. No. So for something like that, just some directions if you're open to it. You may want to look at local restaurant associations and see if there are any restaurateurs who are open to supporting / buying produce from that organization. Because what you want to do there is super critical, is just have consistent money coming in, especially because it is supplies driven. You're not going to be able to grow stuff if you're not going to be able to pay for your water bill or soil or fertilizer or the seeds, or for shipping, or to pay your salesperson who's signing people up for their produce boxes.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think we don't have much time left. Thank you, everyone. This was so lovely. And like I said, if anyone wants to book a call with me, I am offering that 30-minute strategy call, the Brave Winning link, the bit.ly. And if you want to figure out how much money you should be charging in your business for your services, download the money map. I made it super easy. I'm not a math person, but I love math when it comes to money. So I made it super easy for you to figure that out. Emily, is there anything you need to add?
I don't think so. I think we've got it all covered. I'll send out these links to everybody, but this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is so much fun. I've never done a speaking event in this setup. So it's so cool to see people in a room, even if I'm not there.
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate your flexibility with all this and with our technical issues in the beginning.
It's all good. And Emily, are you the best person for me to email the recording to?
Yes, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Okay, fabulous. Well, thank you, everyone. I look forward to talking to some of you. And for the rest of you, please start your business. The world needs whatever it is that you're willing to offer. I'm a big believer that the world is a better place if we all just step in and do the one thing that we were brought here to do, whatever that gift is. It's going to be the solution to hunger and to climate change and to all the world's woes. So please step up and do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I got it. Sorry. Bye.